Welcome, everyone. We'll give others just a few more minutes to join, but while we're waiting, I'll answer some of the questions that were submitted during registration. We got quite a few, so I will try to answer them as quickly as possible. There'll be quite a few links. I'm going to stick the links into the chat as well as give the pop-up, just in case the pop-up's a little too fast. So the first question has multiple parts. The first one, are there any style options for the rows other than just like changing the color, such as like changing the height? Yes. Setting row height is actually a new feature. It just came out a few days ago, and we're going to see that in the webinar. The next question was, can Grist handle massive data? You can check out our limits page to read about all the limitations within Grist around data size. So there is the link to our limits page that describes all of the different limits within Grist. Please note that when self-hosting on Enterprise, limits several times higher can be achieved. You still have to be careful to avoid hitting technical limitations. If that's something you're interested in, feel free to reach out to us. But that Enterprise is generally a good way to go if you need those higher limits. Can I copy the formatting of one sheet and then apply it on another that has the same data schema? If the underlying data table is the same between the two views, then any formatting you apply should appear in both. Now, if they're two entirely separate tables, there is no way to copy formatting from one to another. I do want to mention, though, if they're two tables that are very similar and have a lot of the same columns, they probably should be the same table anyway. And you should probably just reorganize your data with some sort of differentiator column. So an example I like to use is expenses. If you use Excel or Google Sheets, you might have expenses for different months in different sheets. In Grist, you would keep it all in a single table and just have a month column, because then you can summarize better. So if that's the case and you think you need to reorganize your data, feel free to post to our community forum, reach out to us, and we can offer some suggestions there. This one's a great question. I know AI is so rampant, but it would be nice to have an AI assistant to take a prompt and help create a data table schema. Any plans for such? We have an AI assistant. We did do a webinar on it a little ways back. It's completely out of date now. Our assistant does so much more. So I would like to do another webinar on the assistant soon. So keep an eye out. Before the end of the year, I will be doing that. I'm sharing a link to the assistant page. It's in the chat. But definitely check out the AI assistant. It can do so much. It can create columns. It can create tables. I mean, it's way better than when we showed it to you in that webinar. How to connect a front end to a Grist-based database. Using Grist as a back-end solution directly to a website or web app is not yet supported. We don't have an authentication method for this use case, so we do not recommend. So hello, everyone, and welcome to our August webinar. Last month, we showed off some of the amazing custom widgets created by our community, including a batch email composer, draw.io viewer and editor, and an HTML table and access rule report generator. We did also take a quick look at a Kanban custom widget. You can find a recording of that webinar along with all of our previous webinars on our YouTube channel under the Build with Grist webinar playlist. A recording of this webinar will be available there sometime next week. So in today's webinar, we're going to dive into corners of Grist that are as helpful as they are obscure. Often our webinars are pretty organized, where we go from point A to point B, learning some specific set of skills. Today is going to be a wild and chaotic adventure in comparison. So we'll start on the homepage, just going through a few of the features here that often get missed. The first one, to some might seem obvious and to some might blow your mind, that we have a team site switcher up here in the upper left. You can switch between your teams. You can also access a few other features. Like I'm on my team site, so I have billing account and the ability to manage the team. If you're on a personal site, you wouldn't see those. Something I learned yesterday, if you hover over this little Grist logo, the version pops up. So version 1.0.2-daily, that doesn't change at all. But the next set of numbers is in the format year, month, date. And then it has some hash key for the commit. So you can see the version just by hovering over the little Grist icon. You can also learn from that the last time we did an update. We do updates every Sunday night. That's Sunday night, US Eastern. So you can always find that there. And then some other options here. Under the Add New button, you can always create a workspace. That creates these folders basically on the left-hand side. We call them workspaces. They feel like folders. I use that interchangeably, but it lets you organize your documents. Now you can also rename your document and set an icon for it from the home page. So if you click this little 3-dot icon, you have a couple of options. Rename and set icon is pretty handy. You can choose an icon, which lets you choose an emoji. So add a little emoji, and then you can choose the color, which you can select from these pre-selected ones. But if you click the actual color under like filler text, the selected color, you can then click and drag to find the color you really want. From that same menu, you can also pin and unpin documents. So this one's already pinned. We see the pin icon. I can unpin it. But when I do pin it, it ends up in this other tab called Pins. So it just makes it easier to find the documents that you use the most. Now we're going to navigate to our profile settings. So I just clicked my profile icon, profile settings. Generally, you know about profile settings. There's not much new here, but I do want to point out that you can change the appearance of Grist. We have light mode, which is what you're seeing on my screen. You can change it to dark mode if you prefer dark mode. There's also this light high contrast option. You also have the option to switch it automatically based on your system. So if you set it on your machine and you just want it to follow that, you can choose that option as well. And then directly under that, you can change the language of Grist. So you can select from a ton of languages. If there's a language that you want that's not here, this is a community-led project. So if you want to add a language, let us know. We can point you to the correct website to do so. Okay, let's jump into a document. That was the Grist homepage. Just only a few things there to point out. Now to start, we're going to jump into document settings. Document settings can be found in the tools menu in the bottom left-hand corner, and that takes you to the document settings page. Some of these are pretty straightforward. You can set your time zone, your locale, currency. Many of y'all are already familiar with these. Did you know you can also change the document type? This one is less straightforward. Many people don't actually have a use for this. I use it a lot because I'm constantly creating templates or tutorials for you all. So there's 3 different document types. We have default, and that's what you see all the time. Template is like, it lets you open a document in fiddle mode, which basically opens an unsaved copy that a user can play with, and then they can save it to their own page. When you open a template from our template gallery, this is the mode it's in. And the bottom option is tutorial. This, When you share it, it opens as like a link to the actual document. There's nothing special about the link, but it does open as a user-specific copy. If you've ever done our Grist basics tutorial, that is a great example of this. Now, the two most useful features here are under the data engine section, the formula timer and then the reload data engine button. The formula timer lets you time all the formulas in your document. This is very useful if you are experiencing slowness. It is just another step to figuring out what could be causing it. So you would click Start Timing. You have two options. The first one just starts a timer and then you go make changes in your document. I prefer time reload. It forces the entire document to reload and then times all of your formulas all at once. So I'll just do that. This document has nothing interesting in it, so it's not going to tell us much. But you would run that timer. Then you would sort total time, Z to A, so you can see the formulas at the top that are taking the most amount of time. The formulas are really only a problem if you start seeing that they take more than a second. Obviously here, they're taking like no time at all. Because I have no formulas, I barely have formulas in this document, you see a lot of Grist specific formulas that kind of do things behind the scenes. And that's what you're seeing here. Now in your own document, if you have a bunch of formulas, these would all be hidden because they take no time at all. But that is a formula timer. Definitely recommend using it. It's just a great place to start if you are experiencing slowness. And then we have this reload data engine button. It just does a hard reload of your document. Everything gets recalculated, it refreshes it. This is great if you are stuck in an infinite loop or you just see a weird error and you're not able to get around it. Try reloading the data engine. Oftentimes that'll clear everything up. And if I click reload, it just reloads the document. Scrolling through the API section, if you're using the API, then you already know this is here. So we're not going to cover it. But attachment storage, this one's exciting. This is actually a new feature. Currently, by default, attachments for documents are stored internally, so like inside the document, which can increase the data size of a document. If you have a lot of attachments, this can lead to slowness in the document. So now you have the option to store documents externally, meaning outside of the document, which can greatly improve the speed. Grist is still storing the attachments for you. You don't actually have to set anything up. They would just be separate from the document. So if you do have a document that has a lot of attachments, I would recommend updating this to store your documents externally. Now, how do you know if you have a lot of attachments in a document? You can check raw data. So on the left, again, under the tools menu, you see raw data. Now these are just all of my data tables that make up the document. But if you scroll down to the bottom, you see usage. Under usage, you can see the number of rows in your document. You can also see what your limits are based on your plan. You can see the data size, and then you can see the size of attachments. So obviously here I have no attachments in my document, but if you did, it would tell you how much you have and how close you are to the limit. If you're storing attachments internally, the limit is 1 gigabyte on all plans. External limits vary based on plan. They're outlined on our pricing page and also in the Help Center. Search limits and you'll find it. A couple other cool features here under raw data. When you click this three-dot icon next to a table, you do have the option to duplicate a table. So this feature is kind of hidden because most times you shouldn't be using this. If you have tables with a bunch of similar columns, they should be all in a single table with some differentiator columns. So the example I used was expenses. In Excel or Google Sheets, you might have expenses in different tabs for each month. In Grist, we would say keep it all in the same table, have a column that labels the month to differentiate, and then you're able to summarize better. But if for some reason you do need to duplicate a table, I have used this for testing, you can come in here and duplicate it. It creates an exact copy. It does prompt you that this is probably not a good idea. We don't recommend it. You do have to check this box in order to copy all the data in the table as well. So without checking that box, it'll just copy the structure. So if you want to copy the data, be sure to check the box. The other thing I want to point out here in the same menu is edit record card and disable record card. You might be asking, what is a record card? Let me jump to another view. So if you click on this little arrow for a row, or if you click on the space bar when a record is selected, you can view the record card. So here in this classes table, we only see 4 columns. But if I click and open the record card, I see way more information about this record. There's a lot of hidden columns. All of it appears in this record card. You can change this record card and how it's laid out. You're not stuck with whatever default we threw in. So going back to raw data, we're going to click on classes and we'll edit the record card. And now I can rearrange it however I want. If you haven't seen cards before, you can rearrange them just by clicking and dragging, as you see me do right now. You can also resize fields by clicking and dragging. Okay, so I've rearranged it. I can save the layout. I can also open the creator panel here on the upper right-hand corner, and I can change the theme. So if you don't like this form view, you can change it to compact or blocks. We're going to leave it with blocks. Close that out. Now, if I go back to that table and I want to open the record card, it's now in the format that I want. Now, something else cool with this, if you add a classes card to the document, it's going to start in that format. So let me just card, classes. See how it's now in that format. That's now your default. And so you can change it from there, but cards will always start in that saved state. Now let's say you have a table where you don't want the record card enabled. This enrollments table doesn't have a lot of useful information. If I open up the card, it's pretty bland. I'm just going to disable those so no one has to deal with all that extra info. So if I go back to raw data, enrollments, I can just disable the record card. It grays out the card that's here. And then if I go back, it grays it out here. So I can no longer view that record card. This is useful if you have a table that's a single column or maybe 2 columns and just doesn't have a lot of useful information. You can just disable it. Okay, so that was raw data. Now we're going to jump into the creator panel, which is this panel on the right-hand side. This has a lot of juicy information. So it will feel like we're jumping around a lot, but really we're just going through these options. Okay. So first off is widget title. I can change the widget title right from this panel. We'll just call it all classes. And that changes the widget title for the selected widget. You can also click this title at the top and change it from that pop-up. It changes the widget title. This data table name is the underlying data set. So we have a table classes, and that's what this view is built on. And that's what we're seeing at the top. But we can still name this particular widget anything we want. Let's say it was filtered to only show the current semester's classes. We could say current classes instead. And it just helps describe what we're looking at. Now you also have this widget description. It's on the right-hand side in the creator panel, but it's also in that same pop-up. We can add a widget description. Let's say it was current classes and I had a filter applied. That's my description. It makes this little eye icon appear, and when you hover over it, the description appears. And so if you have just a little extra to add about the widget, you can just add it as a description. If you delete the description, the eye icon disappears. So just moving down the list here, we have this green change widget button. I'm sure a lot of you have seen it, maybe used it. When getting started with Grist and you don't know about this, a lot of times you'll add the wrong widget. I do this all the time, either the wrong widget type, or maybe you're creating a summary table and group by the wrong group by, and then you have to go back and delete the widget. You don't have to go back and delete the widget. You can just change it. So for example, the one I almost always do is I'll come in, I'll want to add a new card widget. Let's say I want to add a card for classes. I'll totally forget to select that it's a card or whatever widget type it is, and I'll just leave table and I'll go and add it. Like, oh, that's not what I wanted. I wanted a card. You don't have to go in and try and delete. You can just change the widget, select the type you wanted, or maybe update the data and click save. Easy as that. You don't have to go deleting everything. Now, the other place where this is the most useful is with summary tables. Often you might group by the wrong fields, or maybe you just change your mind about what you want. So let's say we want to create a summary table. So to create a summary table, you just click the summation icon and it summarizes the data within that table. So I'm going to summarize the classes table by class name. Now, let's say my intention is to create a table that shows me how many people are registered for this class. And this is the way I start doing it. I'm going to delete this other widget just so we have more space. And then I'm looking at this, I'm like, this isn't giving me the information that I wanted. And that's because I just summarized the classes table, which just gives general class information. It doesn't actually tell me about the registered students. So I realized I need to change it. Again, you just click change widget. I need the enrollments table because that actually tells me about the students enrolled in a class. And if I group by class, then it'll give me a count of how many people enrolled in each class. And click save. And now it has the summary table I want. Now, if all of the jargon I said about the summary tables is confusing, don't worry about that. You can check out, we have a summary tables article, we have a summary tables webinar, lots of information on summary tables you can find. The key thing here is just know that you can change a widget after you add it. So jumping back up here, I'm going to expand this. So again, we're going through the creator panel options. Our next are grid options. Now, often these just get overlooked because typically you don't need them as much, but you can remove the grid lines in a table. But most importantly, you can add zebra stripes. I think this gets missed a lot, but people tend to really like this feature just for a little bit of contrast between the rows. So zebra stripes. Now the next one. This was actually a question that was submitted during registration about being able to add a row height. This is a new feature as of like 3 days ago. Very exciting. You can set max row height for your document. If you have a column with tons of text, let me pull up a table that has that. Here we go, our classes table. I have this description column. When you have tons of text, it can make your rows extra long, especially when you have new lines within the text. So right now I don't have wrap enabled. That's a column feature. So if I wrapped it, these would be even bigger. I don't have them wrapped. The reason we're seeing multiple lines is because I have new lines entered. So each of these lines is a separate one. This new feature allows you to set that max height regardless of new lines. So right now it's on auto, which will just set your line height on whatever. whether it's wrapped or not, based on the text. But let's say you just want one line. You can just set it to one line, and now it shortens the whole thing to a single line, regardless of those new lines, or maybe you want it to be 5. Then you can have 5 lines. There is also this checkbox here to expand all rows to the site. So the max height is being set by this box. So let's say a cell only has, I'm going to delete a bunch of text here. It has less than 5 rows of text, then it will just keep it to 3. But you can click this checkbox and now it'll expand it to 5. And so your entire table is consistent. Below that, we do have your list of visible columns, your list of hidden columns. This is a quick way to hide and unhide columns just by like selecting all and choosing hide, or vice versa, or deselecting a few and then hiding the rest. You can also quickly hide a column by clicking this little eye icon, or clicking the eye icon to make it reappear. So that's also there. I think more people know about that though. So we've been under the table tab and the widget sub tab. We're going to move over to the sort and filter tab. Obviously, sorts and filters are also available at the upper right-hand corner of the table. You can add sorts, you can add filters, but they're also available in the creator panel. All of the same settings are available in both places. So with a sort, we're going to add a sort to this class name column. And if I click this 3-dot icon, it gives me more options. This is really handy to use the choice position. Now, what is choice position? Again, this is a choice type column. So if I go back over to the column tab, and that's where the column specific settings are, we'll explore that in a minute. I can change this order. Oops. There we go. And so I have a very specific order I like here. I can save it. And now under table, I can actually apply this use choice position, and it's going to sort it based on the order of those choices. You can also do empty values last. And so if there are class records that don't have a class name yet, those would go to the bottom if you select that option. Natural sort is only available on specific column types, just like how choice positions only available on choice type columns. But natural sort is like what you'd expect something to be sorted. For example, if you have some numbers and you sort A to Z, it's going to go 1, 10, 11. Like you're going to have kind of a weird order, even though it's sorting alphabetically. But if you do natural sort, it will look at the numbers and know that 1, 2, 3, and then 10 comes at the end. So that's natural sort. I actually had to Google that one. I had no clue yesterday. Sort and filter, that's basically it. The other thing I want to point out is pinning filters. When you add a filter to your table, by default, it's going to pin it. What does that mean? It adds this little pinned filter at the upper left-hand corner. You can unpin it. So in the creator panel, you can click it there. You can click here and you can unpin it, and you can also click here and unpin it. Lots of options to unpin. With pinning filters, the coolest thing about them is actually to save them without any filter applied. So right now I have no filter applied to the class name column. I currently see all of the values. I can close that and save it. And now I have this handy button to quickly just see a few options in filter, and I don't have to save it. It just saves that filter button. So a little tip there. You probably know that one if you've been to a webinar before, because we talk about it a lot. And then the last tab here is data. Just another place where you can change the selections for the widget. But most importantly here is a select by dropdown. Let's say you are moving around some records and you want to quickly update select by, you can just do it from this tab. A little bit easier than having to go in and like click change widget and then go into the select by. Just less clicks. We will actually see this in action shortly. Okay, so we're going to jump over. We've seen the table tab and all the sub tabs. I do want to note that these headers change based on the widget you have selected. So right now I have a table widget selected, but if I click a card widget, it does change to card and field, and you do get some slightly different options. Table is the most interesting in terms of the table tab, but the column tab will look the same, again, with some differences, like based on the column type, which we'll see again. Okay, but now we're moving to column-specific settings of the Creator panel. First off, we have the column label and the ID. The column label is what you see as the column header, nothing special. The ID is what you use in the formulas. Basically, it takes any special characters, any spaces, replaces them with an underscore. If you have columns with the same name, it will just start adding numbers to the end. So let's say I create a new column. We're going to create a toggle column that does the same thing as spots left, but it's toggle. So I could quickly see if there's spots left in this class. I'm going to enter a formula. To enter a formula, hit the equals key, and then you can click on a column to enter it into the formula. So if spots left is not full, I want this to be true. So it means that there's these classes I can still enroll people in. Now over here on the right-hand side, obviously the column label is the header. But in the ID, we see it's spots left 2. If I was to use this in a formula, I would never remember which one is spots left and which one's spots left 2. Why would I ever remember that, especially like a week down the road? You can unlock this by clicking the little lock icon, and now you can change that ID to something that makes more sense. So I'm just going to call this spots left toggle. And now if I call it in a formula, I know that that's the toggle column and not the other one. This is just a small example, but you can name it whatever you want in the ID, whatever makes the most sense. But whenever you have column headers with the same name in the same table, you can come change the ID to make that easier. Below that, we do have the description. This is just like the widget description, except now on the column. Let's see, check. Leave some little random description. Now when I hover over that I, that description appears. It allows you to add a little more information about a column. So let's say you have a really long column header and you want to shorten it, you can shorten it and then just add a description. So scrolling down, we'll skip formulas. If you want to learn more about formulas, check out our formula article. And then we also have a couple trigger formula webinars. And we'll see a little bit about it in a short bit. Column type, we also have a column type webinar, but I'm going to come down to header style. You can actually change the style of the headers in your tables. Just select a fill, select a text color. You can bold, underline, italicize all at the top and apply. You can also apply these to multiple columns at a time just by clicking and dragging. So that's the header style. Right below that is the cell style. Let's say spots left, make the fill yellow and apply. So just to add some color to your table. Below that is conditional styling. This just uses pretty normal formulas to write them. If you're just getting started with Grist or just getting started with conditional formulas, it does take a little bit to get used to. Feel free to post in our community forum, be like, this is what I'm trying to do. Can someone tell me how to do it? We are happy to help. Once you see an example or two, it'll click. But we're here to help. Feel free to message us. I'm going to use the times column. Let's say we want to find a specific string in that column. Let's say I want to make the record stand out when the class is on a Sunday. So I'm going to say if Sunday, so it's in quotes because it's a string, and that's how you specify a string in Python. I'm going to say in because it's going to check in that field. Because we're not matching an entire value, we're just matching a portion of it. And then I can make it red. And so now if Sunday appears in the time, then it changes it red. So right below that, this is probably my favorite of the secrets, is this common versus separate setting. Let's say that you don't want this nasty red in every view, or maybe you don't want these header colors in every view. The three things we just did, the cell style, the header style, and also the conditional style, can have what we call separate settings. So right now, if I were to go look at another classes table, it's going to have all the same stuff. So here's another view of the classes table. The times header is black. These headers are black. Let's see where. Oh, I have it filtered. Hold on. Remove my filter. I see my conditional formatting. And then I don't have that field here. It's hidden. So if I had spots left, it also has that yellow. Maybe I don't want those settings on every view of this. What you can do is apply separate settings. I'm going to leave those the same just because they're already done. But let's say I come to class code, and in this particular view, I want class code to have some special formatting. Here, it's going to tell me how many views that this field is in. By default, it's set to common setting, which means that you can, when you apply something, it changes in every view. You can change this to separate settings. And so now if I apply changes to this column, it only applies in this view and no others. So I'm going to change the header. I'll change the cell style. Okay, so class code looks really obnoxious right now. If I go over to another view of it, where's class code? Here it is, class code. This column is still normal. We don't have the hideous header color and the hideous fill color that I just selected. It's normal. The only time that that color appears is here. Now let's say I actually really love this. I actually want to apply it to all of the views. Under that same setting, you can go save as common setting, which will set it everywhere for that column, or you can revert back to the common settings, which right now are just the default. But I'm going to save as common settings. And now we see that the class code here updates because it's another view of the same data. So common versus separate settings, definitely play with that. Super cool. I do see a question. Can you apply the cell style on the whole row? If you're applying the header style, you would have to click and select all of the columns. And you can do that for cell style as well. So I click and drag, select a bunch. I can set my header style. And then I can set my cell style. And anything that I've selected, it will apply. Now, if you are trying to set a conditional style to an entire row, so let's say I want to make Thursday classes stand out, but the entire row. Up here next to cell style, you'll see open row styles. And it just opens the table tab of the panel. And so here, that's where you set the row style, the max height. But then you can also set a conditional style for the row. So I'm going to say if Thursday in times, then I'm going to make that blue. And so now it highlights the entire row. Great question. Now, this last setting, I've always seen it in Grist. I've worked for Grist almost 4 years now. And I've ignored it because I didn't know what it did. Apply formula to data. This is actually super cool, especially great for some quick data cleaning. One of our dev uses it anytime he runs an import. He comes back in and applies a formula to data. So let's say that this class code column, I actually want it to be all lowercase. I can apply a formula to data. It's going to set up the formula for you, and then you just manipulate it to tell it what you want to do. I just want everything in lowercase. So that's dot lower. And then I can apply. Perfect. You can also just preview. So if I want to do dot upper, oops, we're going to preview. So you can take a look and see if that's what you like. I don't like that. I'm actually going to change it to, oops, clicked away. Can't type. There we go. Okay. Title case, I'm going to apply that, and it's good. I accidentally deleted one of the class codes. And then you can also use trigger formulas to do some data cleaning. Like this is great for already existing data. If you want data to be cleaned as it's being entered, you can do trigger formulas. We did a whole webinar on data cleaning. I will share that link now. Definitely check that out. Just for a quick peek at that, I'm going to set the trigger formula. And if you want to do data cleaning to the same column, you would use value. And that's how it looks with the value being entered. So if I want to do value.title as my trigger formula, you set it to apply on changes to the current field. And then now let's say I enter some example. Even though I entered it in all lowercase, it switched it to title upon entry. So 2 different ways to do it. Transform applies it to the existing data. Using a trigger formula will apply it to data going forward. The last thing I want to point out here in the column tab is specific to choice columns. So I know class name is a choice column. So here, I know you can see choice column type, and then we see our choices. I just want to point out that you can add colors to choices. Obviously, see ours here. To do that, you just click this little T in a box, and then that color selector appears. Obviously, again, you can select from the existing colors. If you want to select a color that's not there and you don't want to look up the hex code, you can just click this box and it'll let you click and drag, and you can find the color you want. And I also want to point out that these colors do apply. Like if you have a calendar widget and you're trying to apply colors, it's through the type column. It's a choice column, and that's then what you do. We also have a whole webinar on the calendar. And it is in the calendar Help Center article as well, step by step. Okay, so that is it for the right-hand creator panel. We're going to move over to the left-hand side into our page navigation. We have a really cool new feature that people have been asking about. Well, let me cover nesting first. So first off, you can nest pages. As you see under class view, I have classes and staff nested. How do you do that? When you hover over a page name, these little vertical bars appear on the right-hand side. Click and drag. If you just see a green line, it's going to drop your page between those pages where you see the green line. If you want to nest it, you would hover over the page you want to nest. You'll see the box around the parent page, and then you'll see the bar where it's going to fall. So like with class view, I can nest it under class view, but I can put it either before or after staff. So a lot of different options. So like this none of your business page. I don't want people to see that. I'm going to nest it under Popups. So the new feature that goes along with that is that you can actually set the default now to how these nested pages appear. So the class view, I want that to stay expanded, but pop-ups, I want this to be set to collapse by default. So if I click this three-dot icon, down here at the bottom, these are our new options. I can collapse, which will just collapse it just like this little arrow icon, but I can set the default to collapse. And that means that by default, that page will be collapsed. If I reset the page, it will stay collapsed. Now, if I expand it, again, the default is to collapse it. I refresh the page, it's collapsed again. So that's a good way to like hide the pages that you just, that aren't as important. You don't want to get rid of them. They should still be there, but you just don't want them to be like in view all the time. Set those defaults with nesting pages. The other thing I want to point out here is how to add emojis to page names. So with this calendar one, let's add a little calendar emoji. Sorry, I'm skipping steps without talking through them. Click the three-dot icon and click rename. And then you would just add the emoji at the start. I use Emojipedia. It's really easy to copy and paste emojis from. Once you enter the emoji, the little preview box gets replaced with the emoji. And so when you have this collapsed view, you can just see the emoji rather than the little letters, which might be more useful depending on the page. So I know that's my calendar page, so I can go right to it. Very easy. Okay, so that is the left-hand page navigation. Now we're going to move into the widget menu. So the widget menu is just by clicking the three-dot icon on any widget, and it has tons of different options here. Show raw data is really great. So as you're creating your reviews of data, some might have columns hidden or be filtered. Show raw data will show all of the data unfiltered, no columns hidden, so you can see everything all at once. Now these are all pretty standard. We're going to skip through most of these. The next useful one that I totally didn't realize existed for the longest time, create a form. Amazing. Such a quick way to create a form. So let's say I want people to enroll in my classes through a form online. Like they can put the request in through this form. I can go in and approve or waitlist them. I can just click this three-dot icon on the table that I want and then create a form. It'll fill it out for you. You can then make changes, remove fields, modify the form. We do have a whole form widget, of course, a form help center article that goes through that, but that little shortcut is there, quick and handy. The other options I want to show you are here at the bottom. Collapse widget just puts the widget here at the top. So if there's a widget that you want handy, but you don't want it on the page at all times, you can just collapse it. And it's always available at the top. It's pretty handy if you're like doing charts or have an image. You just throw it at the top. But you can also drag and drop those back onto your page. Now, the last feature in this menu I want to show you is duplicate widget, because this is new and exciting. I really pushed for this one because I make a lot of documents. I have to duplicate widgets all the time. Let's say I want this classes card on another page. Setting up a card is time consuming. I will tell you that. Getting it like just how you want it, especially if you do it 2 or 3 times, you're kind of over it. Now you can just duplicate the widget. So let's say I want this card on another page. Click duplicate widget, find the page I want it on. We're going to do staff and save. So now I have the same card widget, same formatting with the fields just as they were on this other page. Now, if I want to update this card so that when I select a staff member that the card updates, I can do that. So table tab, I go to data. Now I can do select by quickly. I don't have to click through too much. And now I selected the wrong one. I did that on the table. Make sure you have the right widget selected. Okay, select by staff. So now when I select a staff member, I see the classes card update to show me the classes that they're assigned to. So Eladine has 2 classes, so I can click through and see both. Daniela has 2. Oops. Colette has 1. So I can see all of it at a glance. It's already linked. Quick and easy. Okay, so that part was all pretty neat and organized. We just went through like section to section. The rest of these are going to be way more chaotic, but still a bunch of cool things. So the first one is that there is a keyboard shortcut to bring up keyboard shortcuts. If you click F1 on your keyboard, it brings up this handy keyboard shortcut list. And so I can go through, I can see all the different shortcuts available in Grist. Now mine is specific to a Windows machine. I have a Windows computer. If you have a Mac, it's going to show you the Mac keyboard shortcut. So it is specific to your machine, which is really handy. But again, the keyboard shortcut to pull this pane up is F1. If you don't have the F keys at the top, then it's Control and backsplash, or if you're Mac, it's the little Mac icon, backslash. So that one's really cool. Keyboard shortcuts can do a lot, and if you're doing a lot of data entry, it can help move it around faster. Let's say you're importing data in from somewhere else, and for some reason the headers don't populate. You can easily do that using the first row. So if you select a row and you click this little drop down, you'll have the option to use as table headers, and it replaces the headers with whatever's in that row. So obviously here I have a formula, so it's just replaced full name with whatever the formula was giving, but you would generally be doing this before you have formulas right after your import. The only time headers don't import correctly is if a header matches a value in that column. And that's when this would be useful. But quick uses table headers would replace them for you. Now let's say you want to copy data from here to somewhere else. If you select a column and then right click in the cell, you do have the option to copy with headers as well. So let's say you're adding data to some other place like Google Sheets. Why? I don't know. But if you did, you do have the copy with headers. And so now I have that header. I have my values all in the same copy paste motion. Pretty handy. Again, that's just right clicking, but you're right clicking in the cell. I do want to point out that like where you click gives different menu options. So like if you right click on the header, you don't get that copy with header option, but you do have a ton of other options. So if you right click somewhere and you're not getting the options that you want, try clicking elsewhere. So like this one's header versus cell, different options. Okay, let me jump to here. We have a quick and handy way to do filtering. So let's say you wanted to see only the requested records where the status is requested. You know, normal filtering, you click this, you filter, you select none, you click requested. That's 1,000 clicks that I just had to do. Or you can just right click on requested and filter by this value. So much quicker. It's a great feature. Again, all you're doing is right clicking, filter by this value. Okay, the new record button. We mentioned this in a newsletter recently. If you want to test out a beta feature for the new record button, you would just add this little URL parameter. So it's going to be really small on your screen. Search our help center for new record button, and you should be able to find it. But you just add this question mark experiment equals new record button to the end of your URL. And it'll ask, you're about to enable this feature. Are you sure? Enable. And then it tells you how to disable it. be sure to note that before you click into it. So if you don't like it, you can always disable it. So I'm going to reload the page, and that's going to enable it. And now I have this new record button. If you still have the pop-up that shows the data cleaning webinar, click close on that so you can see this new record button. It's at the bottom left of the table. And so instead of having to scroll all the way down to add a new record, I can just click this button. It puts my cursor on the new record, ready to go. Handy. And it does show up throughout your entire document. So here I have multiple widgets shown. It's only going to show up on the widget that's selected. So I selected card, I can click new card. I click this table, I can select new record. But please test that out, give us some feedback on it. Again, you're just appending the URL with a special parameter. It was in our newsletter, search new record button in our help center, and you'll be able to find it. Okay, the last thing I want to show you today is a really cool hack that even our CEO and founder didn't know about. It's a very fun one where you can create pop-ups. So here I have a table. If I click this little icon, it opens this pop-up. How handy. Or I open this one, it shows a pop-up of an image. Amazing. Pretty cool little feature. These pop-ups have to exist somewhere else. These are just widgets. So those two widgets are on this none of your business page. So here we are, we have our description widget, and then I have that image widget. So they have to exist somewhere. And then you add this little link. I will walk through an example. So if you're like, well, let's break this down, we will. You add this link, change some parameters, and then it creates a pop-up of that widget that you created. So this is just the notepad widget. We'll just create another example of that one. So for a notepad widget, you need some column to add the text to. So I'm just going to add a column, example text. And that's where we're going to store the text for this new widget. Let me show you what it ends up looking like. So this is the column that goes with this pop-up. So this text writes to this column, and that's what we're doing with this other column over here. So hide that again. So we need the custom widget to write to this column, and then we need a column to actually show our link for the pop-up. Okay. So I have my two columns. I need to create the widget that I want to pop up in my pop-up column. So like I said, we're going to add, it's a custom widget. It's a notepad widget. We're going to add widget to this page, the none of your business page. We select custom, and then we need to select what data. This is for the pop-ups table. That's where I created those two new columns. And I'm going to add a page. I know I want the notepad widget. I'm going to search for it. If you want to know more about custom widgets, I did a whole custom widgets webinar a couple years ago that covers like the notepad widget, markdown, HTML, map, those types of widgets. And then last month we did some community custom widgets, also really cool. Definitely check out those webinars. Add it to the page. Okay, so I have my new custom widget and I need to set it up. So that's done from this widget tab of the custom tab. So in our creator panel, widget sub tab, scroll down. It tells me it needs full access to the document. It needs to be able to read and write, accept. And then I need to pick the content column. So this is the column that it's going to read and write to. And we're going to do an example text. So now if I type text, it has somewhere to save it. Okay, so that was just configuring the actual custom widget. Now we need to create our little pop-up. See how our that example text already showed up. So this column here, that's just to store data. I can hide it. It's unimportant. But this is going to be our little pop-up. So I can take this formula from this existing column and change it. We're going to hit the equals key, enter our formula. I know it's really small on the screen. Unfortunately, I can't make it too much bigger, but it's an F string. So it's here is the text that's going to appear as the link. I'm going to check this out. And then next part is this lengthy URL. So let me delete this so we can walk through it from the beginning. Okay. So we just need a little URL here. So first off, we need an anchor link so it knows where to find this information. So you can easily get an anchor link from a table by right-clicking on a cell and clicking Copy Anchor Link. Now we're going to paste that anchor link between these parentheses, but it's not exactly what we want yet. We have to change a few parameters. So down here after the number symbol, hashtag pound symbol, whatever you want to call it, you see an A1. That's a very specific type of link. We want to change this to A2 because that creates the pop-up. The S, that's the section. That's how we call the specific widget. We're going to change that one soon. The next one we want to update is R. That's looking at the row number or record number. So we're going to delete one, and we're going to do the curly brackets. And then in that, we'll do ID. That's calling the record ID for this row, which allows this pop-up to change between rows. The C number, you don't have to worry about. Okay, so we still need to update this S number because if I click our link, I'll make this look nicer in a second, but if I click our link, it's just a pop-up of the same table. We need to change that section. So this one's a little bit hidden. It took a while to figure this one out. We're going to go back to the None of Your Business page because that's where our widget lives. You can get the section number for a widget by clicking the three-dot icon at the upper right and then right-clicking on the Download as CSV. It doesn't show you my little menu when I right-click, but it's showing like open link, new tab, open link, a new window, save link as, copy link address. What we want is copy link address. So it just copied the link. I'm going to paste it here in this text box. It's a horribly ugly link. What we want, here it says section equals 44. That's the magic number, is 44. So we're going to copy that from here. Go back to our pop-up. Scroll down to section. And we're going to paste that 44. Okay. So now if I click the link, we have our custom widget and it shows my stupid text and my copy pasted link. We can change it. Now we can bold it and make it fun, do cool things and have this really nice like text pop-up. Now, if you want to change this to actually be a link to look like the other two, go to column. We change the column type to text. And then we change the cell format to markdown. And so it'll read the markdown and show that it's a hyperlink using the text that we added. Check this out. And now when I click it, it opens that pop-up with the very specific text for that record. So record 1 says type text. Record 2 doesn't have text yet. So example 2. And then if I click on record 3, it shows neither of that. I can still create 3. I'm just going to be lazy. But if I go back to 2, my text is still saved. So really cool way to do pop-ups. Again, our CEO and founder didn't even know this. So this was a fun little secret. This was truly is a secret. As you see, the steps to figure it out are wild. But with that, that does conclude our webinar. I know we ran over. I appreciate you all sticking around through the end. If you have any questions, I can stick around for a couple more minutes. I know Nick was answering a lot of them. And if you have any questions later that crop up, please post to our community forum. I will share a link to that again. It's a great place to ask questions. Obviously, Grist employees jump in and answer questions, but a lot of our community members jump in and answer questions as well. Awesome. If no more questions, we will conclude it there. Thank you guys again for joining us. We will see you for GristCon on September 18th, and then we will see you for next month's webinar. It's not scheduled yet, but keep an eye out. It will be announced in our newsletter at the end of this month. Thank you guys. Have a good rest of your day.